Professor Lumpkins, the lecture was titled Demystifying Malcolm X's Legacy, Direction for the 21st Century Social Change. So how did the idea for this lecture come about?
Well, when I discovered that, or informed that students in the African American Studies Department Student Council asked me to come and give an interview because they know that I've been teaching the Malcolm X course for a few years now, and they said, talk about anything you wish. Since it was the day, February, they want to talk about Malcolm X. That was the month he was assassinated in 1965. And I just thought, why not follow through what students often ask me in my Malcolm X course, namely, can you take some of these ideas and apply them to what's going on today? So I figured, why not? Here's my chance to connect Malcolm X, his ideas, to the presidential election year. Namely, okay, specifically, Hillary Clinton versus Barack Obama in the Democratic Party nomination.
Mm-hmm. Well, before we delve into the discussion that resulted as part of the lecture, tell us a little bit about Malcolm X.
Okay. Essentially, Malcolm X is best known for his membership in the Nation of Islam, a black religious organization, where he gave fiery speeches denouncing white people as devils, so forth and so on. What we do not know is the Malcolm X after he left the Nation of Islam in March of 1964, where, as he called himself, a revolutionary black nationalist, where he stopped denouncing white people's devils and problems for black people. And he went on to say that we can have interracial coalitions. We can work together to fight racism, to end white supremacy. And that's the part that most people have not heard.
Yeah, they're not aware that he became disillusioned with that group.
With the Nation of Islam, for some very interesting political reasons why he became so. And after he left the Nation of Islam, that's where he went. But his ideas were in rapid transition in those last 8 months of his life before he was cut down by assassins' bullets in February 21st, 1965.
Well, and because his ideas were in rapid transition, he was changing and evolving. Is it difficult to talk about what he might think today?
It's difficult in the sense that we have to keep in mind a nuance. As I like to say to my students, our minds have to multitask when we talk about Malcolm X. In comparison, Dr. King, who was a very complicated figure in his own rights, he had a certain consistency in his thinking. Malcolm X, what appears to most people, made an abrupt shift in March 1964, although his ideas were percolating in the last 2 years as a member of the Nation of Islam. But after that, he was his own agent, so to speak, and his thinking just moved very quickly, fast, and transition. That's the best thing I can say.
And you brought up Dr. King. You say for people to know a lot about Malcolm X, you need to know he argued for human rights versus civil rights.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. I emphasize that because so many of my students have come in saying Malcolm X was for civil rights. Now I have my ideas why they heard that and accept that. Perhaps there are some folks who want to make Malcolm X look respectable. Get beyond the fact that he said he was a revolutionary black nationalist in the last, let's say, 12 months of his life. But as I play his speeches in the classroom and we dissect his speeches, I tell my students, what did he say? He kept saying human rights, human rights. Essentially what he was saying is that civil rights is the individual's or the citizen's relationship to his or her government, right to vote, right to sit on juries, right to, let's say, buy a house wherever you want, things like that. But the government can giveth, the government can taketh. But human rights, that's, okay, as we say from our Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, inalienable rights. These are rights that are born with us as human beings, or, if you will, conferred upon human beings by God. Can't be taken away by the state, by government. So, and this is very important as far as Malcolm X was concerned. With civil rights, you're left arguing with the government, but with human rights, the whole world is now part of your conversation with the government.
Well, with that said, you began the lecture with a quote, and I want to read that, and then we'll delve into it a little bit.
Okay.
Malcolm X would say, quote, "Stay away from Clinton. Hold your nose as you vote for Obama, and regardless of who becomes president, be ready to launch and sustain campaigns for the right and social economic advancement of working people of all colors in the United States." Let's break that up a little bit.
Okay.
Let's begin with why those at the lecture, or why someone might believe Malcolm X would say, "Stay away from Clinton."
All right. To give some background, I just want to, as a historian, I have to preface this. We have to assume that Malcolm X remained the same, let's say, in his last 3 months of his life, December of 1964, January, February 1965. Let's assume he remained the same. Okay, based on his speeches, the most famous, the Ballad or the Bullet speech given in April 1964, and subsequent speeches, we can make, I said to the students, we can make this, projections. Okay. Malcolm X was never enthralled with the mainstream political parties, the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. He believed both parties serve special interest groups, especially the very wealthy, the very powerful in this nation. Now, given that, with Hillary Clinton, you said, he would immediately identify her as totally ensconced in the establishment in the Democratic Party. He was very fond of pointing out politicians, white politicians, black politicians, even black civil rights leaders he named, who are tricksters. And all they are tricksters. He would say, if Hillary Clinton, I can easily see him now, given his speeches, if Hillary Clinton says that she has all these years of experience, let's look at that experience. And of course, her experience would be based on her time in the White House when her husband, Bill Clinton, was president. What did Bill Clinton do? Especially for African Americans. Because in 1964, he was really chastising African Americans for being so loyal to the Democratic Party without questioning why the Democratic Party has basically ignored them. So he would cite the Lonnie Guinier issue. He would cite the welfare reform issue, the NAFTA issue, and other issues that the Clintons favored, and actually a number of these programs that the Clintons favored, the policies, as definitely from Malcolm X's point of view, he would say, have hurt working people, especially African American working people, because his main concern, being an African American, was with his own people. But in the last few years last few months of his life, he was also branching out to include other individuals, other Americans, people of all colors.
Let's move on.
So with Clinton, definitely out.
Sure. Okay, well then let's move on to the next part of the quote. Okay. Hold your nose as you vote for Obama. What is meant by that? Okay,
that is meant simply, well, this is a very curious fellow. He too is part of the Democratic Party establishment. He would be like a trickster in the sense that he is getting folks to think of things other than what Malcolm X believed was necessary, namely building a movement towards a revolution to overthrow the American government and the present American economic system. So he would be curious about this fellow Obama. Now, he would applaud Obama for, let's say, his stance against the war in Iraq, but he would look at Obama from another important issue. Malcolm X always insisted that the grassroots have to build their own organizations, have to have their own movement. Now, he noticed one thing about Obama, and that's spelled out very clearly in the recent issue of Rolling Stone magazine, that Obama is building a movement that he wants to include numerous folks, ordinary folks from the grassroots, especially young folks. Now, Malcolm X, he made speeches where he talked about the grassroots, and I know in one speech, I'm trying to remember the name right now, but it escapes me, he implored the youth to study, to think, to bring new ideas to the table, because the old ways have been have not gotten people anywhere. So he would say, okay, this is good. This is good. In other words, he would say, there's an opportunity here to get involved, to interject ourselves, and hopefully draw the people in a different direction, a progressive direction. Because deep down, he would assume that the forces of, quote, evil, as he would put it, would derail Obama, would prevent him from achieving even some of the easier things. Well, from Malcolm X's point of view, the easy thing would be pull the troops out of Iraq now. Obama might not be able to because the powers to be will say no.
And the third part of the quote, we have about a minute remaining.
Okay.
Regardless of who becomes president, be ready to launch and sustain campaigns for rights and social and economic achievement of working people of all colors of the United States and around the world. And that's his guiding philosophy?
That's his guiding philosophy, namely that his interest was, okay, there's this thing called power, what to do with power. Power is in the wrong hands, and it should be in the hands of the grassroots, ordinary working folks. I'm sure he would have said something like, what was wrong with Ohio was that working folks who voted for Hillary are putting their faith in Hillary instead of, let's say, put their faith back into their labor unions and rebuild their labor unions to fight for workers' rights. Because, again, he will say, these politicians serve first the wealthy and the powerful, whose interests are different from the grassroots.
Thank you for an interesting dialogue tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Lumpkins.
Okay. Glad to be here, and thank you very much.
A copy of the program you've just seen can be purchased through Penn State Media Sales at mediasales.psu.edu or by calling 800-770-2111.